Good morning. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Cooking with Carrington. Thank you guys for coming back. I'm sorry that we did have to postpone this episode, but this is a great episode, and I wanted to make sure that we got it so that you guys can make this dish at home. It's a very simple dish, but it's a kind of elegant dish that you can do different things with. And we're going to do a blackened swai. So swai is a type of fish. We call it, if you would go to our blogs at cookingwithcarrington.com, and you can see our blogs. And we did a blog on catfish or swai, cooking cousins. So catfish is a very good North American fish. They have great flavor and they have good texture and everything else. But for some people, they don't like the gaminess of them. And sometimes it can be a little muddy. So there's another fish called swai, which is kind of a cousin to the catfish. It's less gamey in flavor. It's a little more flakier, I should say, and the milder flavor, but it adheres to anything that you would put on it, whether it's fried, sauteed, grilled, broiled, if you add a sauce to it, very similar to the catfish. So go to that blog at cookingwithcarrington.com and you will see our catfish or swai, kissing cousins. So today we're going to use the swai fish. As you can see it right now, the swai is just a little bit flakier. It's a little bit lighter, a little thinner in texture, but it has a wonderful, wonderful flavor profile that can blend with anything else, with anything you put with it. So I'm going to start right now with blackening seasoning. Everybody thinks about blackening and they think of burnt. And actually, we do have a blog on that also on our cookingwithcarrington.com page, and it's called Blackening, Not Burnt. So the idea of blackening is the toasting of herbs. So we're going to use dry herbs because they're easier to toast. And they actually, when you're toasting the dry herbs, the oils don't come out as strong or as fast. So it tends to not burn as quickly. So in the cooking world, it has what we call a lower smoking point. So we're going to go ahead and start right now with our blackening seasoning for our blackened swai with our Cajun shrimp sauce. All right, so let's start with the blackening seasoning right now. Very simple. Again, this is Cajun cooking, guys. And if you go to our blogs, you can look and you'll see there's some excellent information on what Cajun cooking is. And I'm going to go ahead and do an advertisement for a great book that I've used and I've worked with the chef. We've done classes years ago called The Evolution of Cajun Cooking. You guys ever get an opportunity with John Foles, pick that book up. It's awesome. So let's go ahead and start with our blackening seasoning. So in our blackening seasoning, what we're going to have some dried oregano, some dried thyme. We're also going to have some black pepper, some Spanish paprika. I like the Spanish paprika for this dish, not the Hungarian. We're going to use just a little bit of salt. So as you can see, there aren't a lot of ingredients in it, but these ingredients blended together give off such an amazing, wonderful flavor profile. And again, this is Cajun cooking, and it is a, the Louisiana style, the Northern Louisiana, Middle Louisiana style cooking by the Arcadians. Again, look at our blog and you'll get a little bit of history about who the Arcadians were and what they did. So let's go start. We're going to add a little bit of thyme. All right, your recipe, if you have your recipes ready, everybody has their recipe out and ready to go, and you can follow along. And we're going to add our thyme, and we can just add it all into a bowl and mix it together. So we're going to add 1 part thyme to 2 parts oregano, okay? 1 part thyme to 2 parts oregano. This is your base for your blackened seasoning. 1 part thyme, 2 parts oregano. Now, you can actually add a little more oregano if you like. Oregano is very indicative of Cajun cooking. It has awesome flavor and it works wonderful with a lot of different dishes. So I'm going to go and put that in there. I'm going to mix this around a little bit. And I'm going to add it into our larger bowl here. Okay. And we're going to put it in here. and we're going to get it mixed around because we're going to use this for a couple different things that we're going to work with on today. So when you have your 1 part thyme, 2 parts oregano, then we're going to go ahead, we're going to add some ground black pepper. I like to use the restaurant ground black pepper. It is a little bit coarser than your normal table ground black pepper and not as coarse as what we call a cracked black pepper. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and add, it's about 3 teaspoons full. All right, and I'm using a tablespoon to measure that. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and now we're going to add our paprika. Now be very careful with the paprika because if you add too much, and this has happened to me in the past, I like flavors, and mixing it up, I've had it once or twice too much paprika, and you get a reddened catfish instead of a blackened fish. And I'm doing the swai today. And so we don't want a reddened swai, we want a blackened swai. So I'm going to add just a small amount of the paprika so that it stays blackened, but it still has that flavor. Now you could use a smoked paprika if you're looking for a smokier flavor in this profile, but I like just a nice toasted flavor that the paprika blends with the thyme and the oregano.
Question, Chef.
Question?
Yes. So we noticed that some of your seasonings are in containers, and then there's a couple of seasonings you had in a baggie. Is there a difference between those 2 seasonings?
Great question. Question is, why do I have some seasonings in containers like this and other seasonings in bags? So I tend to buy my dried seasoning, my dried herbs. I tend to buy them in bulk. When I buy them in bulk, 9 times out of 10, they're a little fresher. I know it sounds crazy because we're talking dried and fresh, but they're a little fresher. They're not as stale. They haven't stayed on the shelf too long. And the shops that we get it from, they're constantly moving. And it's as far as cost-wise, it's a lot less expensive because we're not paying for the labeling and the plastic container and everything else when you get it off the shelf in your supermarket. So, and then there's other spices, salt, black pepper, granulated garlic. Those items are the ones that we tend to buy off the shelf, just because of the volume use of them. Great question. All right, so I'm going to mix this in. All right, we're going to mix it around. Now, sometimes you can put a little bit of garlic in here. You can add parsley, dried parsley. You can add any spice that you want in here. For me, I like that basic flavor profile of the oregano and the thyme blended together. And especially for this dish that we're going to do, because it's gonna go with, if I were just doing a regular blackened swai and it was just going to be eaten as a blackened swai, I would actually put some garlic in here. I might add a little bit of parsley flakes. But because we're going to actually put a Cajun shrimp sauce over the top, which is going to have garlic in it, in the sauce itself, we don't want to overpower any of the dishes. We want to build flavor. We don't want any flavor. There's no need in having a ton of flavor in one item. We want everything to meld together in a great melting pot. So when you taste it, you taste the layers of flavor. The flavor profile just grows as you eat it. So this is why we're going to do it this way, okay? And it's really simple to mix. Now, one other thing that I don't do in my blackening, I don't add a lot of salt, okay? Because when you put that salt on it and it's starting to toast with those herbs, what can happen is that salt can start to condense and the flavor just multiplies and it become up a very salty dish, even though you don't have a lot of salt in the dish, but just because of the way it's cooking and the reduction of the moisture in the dish as it's cooking, that salt flavor becomes very, very strong. Okay, so that's one of the reasons why we don't do that. So on this dish, so what we're going to do, this dish today, we're going to do that Cajun swai. We cooked off some pasta and I used a tricolor penne strictly because I love the colors. And there are different flavor profiles in this one. So in this penne, you have your basic egg pasta, then you have your tomato pasta, and then you have a little bit of spinach pasta. And that gives you the three colors of the Italian flag, and has great flavor profile. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually cook our swai, and we're going to saute. We're going to saute a little bit of spinach. You could actually do this with a rice dish on the side, maybe a rice pilaf or a Cajun dirty style rice or something like that. But we're going to do it today with a little bit of pasta, with a little sauteed spinach and cherry tomatoes. All right. So now we're going to move on. Any questions so far? Where we are and what we're doing?
Question, Chef.
Yes.
When should we turn on our pan or griddle for our swai?
Great question. When should we turn on our pan or the griddle for our swai, for our blackened swai? So I have turned mine on probably about 30 minutes ago already. So the idea is we don't want the pan super heated. So if we're cooking outside, again, Cajun dish, guys are cooking in the swamp, they're catching catfish, cleaning it up. Swamp, they use super hot cast iron flat tops or cast iron pans. For us, for our intensive purposes, because we're cooking in the kitchen, we don't have to get it super hot, but we do want it to be nice and hot. We don't want it so that we put it on, we don't want a high smoking when everything just starts to smoke up. So we want it, so I start mine at a nice medium heat, and I just let that, and I'm using a griddle top right on top of my flat top here on our stove top, and we just heat it nice medium heat for a long period of time so that that metal starts to hold that heat inside, but we don't really have to worry about burning. Now, as I go to put the swai on, I may end up increasing the temperature, or I may turn it down a little bit. Again, that's something that we play by ear. And I've talked to you about before in our other episodes. You can always know how well your product is cooking as soon as it hits the pan, because the pan will talk to you. If that pan starts screaming at you and you hear that real you know your pan is too hot. If you put it on and you don't hear anything, you know that your pan is too cold. So when we get to that point, we're going to listen to the pan and let the pan tell us what we need to do. Great question. All right. So with that being said, we're going to move on, and we're going to talk about, so we have a little bit of shrimp here. So the shrimp I have today is a Gulf Coast shrimp down from down here in Texas. And this shrimp, I actually bought it with shell on. I cleaned it myself, but I suggested you guys buy a P&D, which is a peeled and deveined shrimp. I like to use a 21 to 25 pound shrimp for a sauce like this because of the size of the shrimp. It's a nice size shrimp. It looks great on a plate. It has great presentation. It's not going to overpower the swai. It's not going to become so much that it's a shrimp dish, but it will have that shrimp complex flavor into the dish. All right. So
question, Chef.
Yes, question.
You said 21, 25, and I always see numbers after the shrimp. What does that mean?
I was getting ready to get to that. So the 21, 25 means that for the pound, you have an average of 21 to 25 shrimp per pound. So it could be, if they're larger in size, they can be 21 to the pound. If they're smaller in size, they can be 25 to the pound. But normally when a 21, 25, you're going to average somewhere between 23 and 22 shrimp per pound. So you normally will see a 16 to 20, 21 to 25. You have a 26 to 30, a 31 to 40, and as it go on and on, so on and so on. But that's just to give you a range of how many shrimp you can expect in a pound of that of the shrimp. Great question. Great question.
Another question, Chef.
All right. Question.
Is there a difference between the different types of shrimp? I've seen red shrimp and brown shrimp and gray shrimp. Is there a difference? Yes,
there is a difference. Question is, there a difference in shrimps? I guess the question would be, is there a different flavor profile of shrimp? So what I just mentioned, we have Gulf shrimp here. So these are Texas, out of the Texas Gulf of Mexico, and they're called Texas Gulf shrimp. They have a little bit of a sweeter flavor profile than as you see if you're going into your supermarket and you'll see maybe tiger shrimp. Tiger shrimp comes from Southeast Asia, and they have more of a stronger shrimp flavor. They're usually high in iodine. You also have brown shrimp, which actually you can get them in North America also. And then the new thing that's on the market has been out for the last couple of years, Argentinian red shrimp. So the Argentinian red shrimp, they have their flavor profile for me it's less shrimpy, and it's more of I'm going to say almost tasting like a lobster, not a lot of flavor, but the texture of a lobster. And there's one other thing within that. There's something called prawns. And so prawns are normally, they're head on. Normally they're larger normally, but they are still crustaceans in the shrimp family. A lot of times if they sell them as prawns, they can still be a shrimp, but they just label them that way. But there is a difference in prawns and shrimp. Great questions, guys. Keep them coming, keep them coming. So as we're moving along, I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna slice up, actually we're gonna brunoise, and we talked about the different cuts before. We're gonna brunoise a little bit of red pepper and green pepper, and we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna dice up some garlic. So I've got fresh heads of garlic, as you can see. It's a fresh head of garlic here. And the way that we're gonna do our garlic, we're gonna take it, and have you seen my other classes and the other programs that we had, the episodes, you'll see we constantly do the same thing. Consistency is the big part of cooking. I'm gonna place one hand over the head of garlic, all right? And I'm gonna place the other hand over that hand, and I'm gonna press with the heel of my hand. I'm gonna press slightly, again, talking to me. You will hear the garlic separate. Can you guys hear that? So that's the garlic starting to separate. Now I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna be able to gently peel a couple cloves off. So the whole garlic bulb is called the head of garlic, okay? Once we take off the little fingers, these are cloves of garlic, okay? Any questions so far? So again, I'm gonna separate, light push, here it pop, and then we're gonna be able to pull back a little bit, and hopefully one that just hit the floor. It happens in the kitchen sometimes. We'll pick it up in a little bit. I'm just gonna pull off another clove. And we'll have to press. This is a nice tight head. There we go. You heard that? We're just gonna pull it off, put that to the side. All right, now I'm gonna take the corner of my knife. I'm gonna take my knife and I'm gonna lay it flat side down. Keep the edge away from your hand. The edge should be pointing out, all right? Your hand should be here. Your edge is pointing out so we don't cut ourselves. And we're gonna lay it down on top, and then we're just gonna, our hand up in the air, just the heel of our hand, just the heel, guys, and we're gonna pop it. You'll hear it again. Food will talk to you. And we're gonna do the same thing again. Heel up, so we're not gonna get our hand on that edge. Heel up, and we're gonna pop. Once we pop it, you see what happens? You see how the clove has separated for me? Then we can come back in, and we can lightly take that peel off. Notice that? That look good?
Yes.
All right, so that's where we are with that. So we got those cloves open. Take that off there. Wipe up board just a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to mince our clove, right? Because we're going to need it for saute, and we're going to need it for the spinach also. So I'm just going to slice down lightly. Then I'm going to cross cut, coming back the other way. Keep your fingers behind the blade, guys, okay? And then we're going to slice down. All right. Any questions about what we're doing and how we're doing it?
Question, Chef.
All right, so I'm going to finish slicing this up real quick. So as we make this dish today, we're going to, this is a great tasting dish. It's going to be a great looking dish. It's going to have a lot of flavor. It's going to have a lot of things going on. We're talking about the Cajun cooking. In that book I told you about in dealing with Chef Foltz, we did a couple seminars years and years and years ago. He's an amazing chef. He also told me what Cajun cooking was. So Cajun cooking was a form of cooking that the Acadians brought to Louisiana. Acadians were French trappers, and they moved to Louisiana. They were living in the swamp, and they were trapping. But they brought the French style of cooking with them, but they didn't have all the French ingredients or the French cooking equipment. So they quickly adapt to what was available. And what was available then was the indigenous people that lived there, their form of cooking. At the same time, you had the French, you had the Italians coming over, the Spanish came in, the Germans came, and all of those things blended together. And again, I'm gonna tell you, you go to our blog, we have great information on our Cooking with Carrington page and our different blogs. But all of those cuisines came together, all those styles of cookings, that they're very rustic and raw cooking styles of cooking. They all came together and they developed this wonderful, wonderful new cuisine. But as it states in the book, it wasn't Cajun cooking until the black hand was in the pot. And the black hand in the pot in those days were the Africans that were brought here in bondage. They were the ones that added that extra flavor profile, and they created this great, like you go to New Orleans, people talk about New Orleans cooking all around the world, Louisiana cooking all around the world. And that's how this Cajun cooking came about. So it came out of need, it came out of availability, and it came out of people coming together and melting as one. So that's a great, great history on Cajun cooking. So we're going to move on, and we're going to go ahead and brunoise up our peppers. Like I showed you guys before, when we cut peppers, we don't look at the pepper as an object being round. We look at it being square, and the square should be right in the center of your core. If you can see that core right there. And so what we do is we always cut around the core, so it eliminates a lot of the seeds, even though you may get some on your board, but it eliminates a lot of the seeds. And then that part goes into your garbage. If you have a little bit of seed in it, then you just take it and you can just gently take that membrane out, and you knock those seeds out, and it eliminates a lot of the seeds that you would have all over your board if you were to just go ahead and cut that pepper. And I know anybody that's just cut pepper, they know what I'm talking about. So we're gonna do the same thing with the green. We're gonna go around it. All right. So now we're not gonna use all this pepper, but it's a great thing. And it's something that I learned from my mom years ago. You don't have to use all your pepper. What you do, you cut what you need. The rest of it you take and you put into a baggie, and you just put it in your refrigerator. Actually, she's also would freeze it sometimes, just like this, and it holds up well. So whenever you need a pepper, just pull one out, use it, and it's good to go. So I'm going to just brunoise. Brunoise, again, those are the different cuts that we talked about. Everybody's heard of julienne, and most people have heard of minced, and most people have heard of diced, and there's a couple other ones like called a bâtonnet, and then we also have one called a brunoise. So a brunoise all essentially is something in between a small dice and a mince. So what we want it to be, show up in the dish, and this is going to give great color and great character to this sauce that we're going to make. And it's going to look good on top of the fish mixed in with the shrimp, with the pasta and a little spinach underneath, because that's what we're going to do. But it actually looks great, and it holds up well in cooking. All right. So this is about all we're going to use right now. And you can see, notice when I'm cutting, guys, my fingers stay behind that blade. I don't stick any fingers out like this. I don't put fingers down like this. They're going to bend up and they stay behind the blade. All right. The worst thing that we want to do is I'd hate to look up and ask you guys, let me see your dishes. And I see somebody's fingers on the board. All right. We don't want to see fingers left on the board, guys. When we walk away from the board, we want to walk away with all our digits. All right. Making sense? Any questions? All right. There we go. All right. So this is what we're going to add into our Cajun shrimp sauce. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lay this knife down. I'm going to lay a blade in so that when I go to pick up, just in case I don't grab the handle, I grab the blade part, I don't get cut. I'm going to move these over to the side of the board. These are going to get placed into a plastic bag, which we will use at a later date for some other item. All right. Any questions, guys?
No questions, Chef.
All righty. So what we're going to do now, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to walk over to the stove right now. I'm just going to double check my griddle, make sure it's hot. All right. And then I'm going to get my pan started. Yes, it's hot. I'm going to get my pan started to start our Cajun shrimp sauce. I'm coming back to my board. So with that being said, I told you guys if you could get your P&D shrimp, those are the peeled and deveined shrimp, which are fine. I just actually bought some, the ones I got had shells on and the tails. I just cleaned them up really quick and got them going. Lots of times when I am making things like gumbo or etouffee or even fried shrimp, I buy shrimp with the tail and the shell on. And once I take the shell off and the tail, I keep them, I put them in a plastic bag. So when I get ready to make a gumbo or etouffee or something, I make a quick shrimp stock out of that as the base for my gumbo or etouffee. But today, and I know on the equipment list, I said for people to get shrimp base or the dried shrimp. And the reason I said that the dried shrimp we've used a number of times in some of our other episodes. If you can't get it, it's not that important for this dish because the star of the dish is actually the blackened swai. It's not the shrimp sauce. The shrimp sauce is the accompaniment to the blackened swai. So the flavor profiles will roll from the blackened swai to everything else. But if you could find shrimp base or a little bit of dried shrimp, that's nice too, but it's not that important, guys. One other thing, when we talk about the sauce, I'm gonna do to keep costs down for people, we're doing it with a slight roux and milk. Classically, or if you wanted it, you could actually just do it with heavy cream. You could omit the flour and the oil and the milk. But just to keep costs down is the reason why I went ahead to do it, to show you this way, because it helps with costs. And it, to me, for a dish like this, you're not losing any character because the flavor, again, this dish is an accompaniment to the blackened swai. And there's going to be so much flavor in that you're not going to lose anything by using a roux and milk in this dish. All right. Now, there are other dishes that we'll make that we'll definitely have to use heavy cream. And when we get to those, we'll talk about those. Any questions?
No questions, Chef.
No questions. Everybody's doing good. All right. We're going to move on now over to the stove. We checked our griddle already. Our griddle's getting still. It's hot. It's hanging in there. I touched my griddle real quick, guys. You have to be careful when you're doing that. Not everybody can do that, but if you do it quick, don't put your hand on there and leave it. It's just quick, and I feel that heat, okay? So we're gonna turn our stove on. Stove top. And get a little bit hot. And what I'm gonna do is to show you, again, there's measurements in there, but I want you guys to start working with understanding what you're working with, okay? And what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna take our oil, and I'm using a little canola oil. You could use olive oil. I'm not big on olive oil. I'm sorry, I'm messing with my cameraman here. My fault, guys. I'm back over to the stove. So I'm gonna use a little bit of canola oil, just a little bit for this, because it doesn't have to be very heavy. We just want it so that the sauce is gonna coat onto the fish and hold in the shrimp flavor. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna add a little bit of oil in, okay? We're gonna go ahead and let the oil get a little hot. I told you we're gonna use this garlic for the sauce and for the shrimp. I'm gonna be walking back and forth from the stove to the cutting board. We're gonna add a little bit of garlic in. All right. Now we talked about talking to you. So I don't want this garlic to brown too much for this dish, but I could have let it get a little bit hotter, which I didn't, and that's okay. I'm just gonna turn the heat up a little bit on it, and we're just gonna wait for the garlic to start to caramelize a little bit. The great part about this caramelization is, and a lot of people understand, so in garlic, there's a lot of sugar, and that's what starts the browning of the garlic. Same thing with onions. People don't realize the amount of sugar that's in onions. And that's when you talk about caramelization. Caramelization is actually browning of the sugars that's in the item. And as we can see right now, I hope you can see it, it's starting to cook up a little bit. You see the little sizzle moving around. And can we see that? Can we hear that? All right. It's talking to us. All right. That's what I'm looking to hear. We're gonna let that brown. Oh my gosh, there's that smell. There's nothing like the Italians call it frying the garlic. The French call it sauteing the garlic. We call it cooking the garlic, but there's nothing like the smell of just cooking garlic. All right. There's nothing like it. That smell, and no matter where you are, and no matter what kitchen you're in, where in the world, you always know that it's garlic that's cooking. All right. So we're gonna let that go a little bit longer. So we're gonna just get a slight caramelization out of it. And I'm gonna go back over to my board here, and I'm gonna grab a little bit of my peppers in here, get them into my bowl. So there's a couple ways I can pick this up, and I want you guys to be careful. I take the edge of my knife and I slide in, and then I slide down gently, not putting my hand on the blade. My hand only touches the product. Okay. This way we protect our fingers. We don't want to, like, again, I don't want to see a lot of red stains on your cutting board. I don't want to see a lot of any digits left on the board. All right, so as we see, as we look at this, can we see this?
Yes, chef.
All right, you see that turning, that golden, that blondish brown? That's what we want, and it's talking to us. We're gonna come from another camera angle, maybe you can hear it. The pan is talking, so that's what we want. We don't want to go any further than that. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna add my peppers right in. Now you hear it, right?
Yes.
You hear the pan talking? And the other item that I brought over, and I don't know if I mentioned it, I think I may have, was the shrimp base. This is actually what we call shrimp base. It's kind of hard to find unless you go to a very, very foodie type established supermarket, and you're going to look in your where they have soup and bouillons and stocks, and you look for the bases, and they may have shrimp base. Normally you'll have chicken and beef base. Sometimes they'll have shrimp base. So now, as I'm cooking this up, this is going pretty good. Now we're going to use a technique. It is called sanjay, and we're going to sanjay the vegetables. So what we're going to do when you sanjay, we're going to make, basically you would normally make a roux, would just be the oil and the fat, I should say, not necessarily oil, but the fat and the flour. So what we're going to do, once you have the veggies in, we're going to go ahead and add the flour onto it, and that's called sanjaying the vegetables. All right.
Approximately how much flour, chef?
On this one, what we're doing here, that was approximately a quarter of a cup or a little bit, maybe a little bit more, but not much. We don't want it to be too thick, and you can always thin this down or thicken it up. I like to just thicken it the one time, and I'm gonna add just a little more oil to it right now. And I'm gonna add a little bit of our blackening seasoning, and that's the reason that we made the blackening seasoning ahead of time. So we're gonna add just a little bit of oil to it. And I didn't want to add the blackening seasoning until we got the flour in, and the reason being because we did not want to burn. There's a difference between burnt and blackening. So I'm heading back over, and I'm gonna grab a little bit of my blackening seasoning that we just made, right, guys? And we're just gonna sprinkle just a little bit. We don't need a lot of it, because again, it's not the star of the dish. Now you can use your measuring spoon, or I just use my finger, a couple little pinches in there. All right, and now I'm gonna add a tiny bit of cayenne pepper. When I say a tiny bit, guys, do not handle your cayenne pepper, okay? But when I say a tiny bit, I'm gonna use a quarter of a teaspoon to get it out, but I'm only gonna add about that much. Again, Cajun cooking is not about heat. Cajun cooking is about flavor. That's what it's about, okay? So anybody can make anything hot. Not everybody can make food flavorful, all right? So now we're gonna come back over, and we're sauteing our veggies, and they're probably getting really nice. And your veggies are gonna have a little caramelization to them also. For this dish though, we don't want a lot of color. So I'm gonna now lower this temp a little bit, turn the pan, and we're gonna lower the temperature just a little bit. All right, because we don't want, the sauce is gonna have a little bit of color. Because we're gonna add a tiny bit of our shrimp base right now. So the shrimp base can be, if you get a base, you have to be very careful when you buy your bases, shrimp base, chicken base, or beef base. Read the ingredients. And with that being said, if you go to our blog also, we have a blog on labeling. And the reason I'm saying that now is because you want to read your ingredients, because a lot of times with your bases, the first ingredient is going to be salt. If that's the first ingredient listed on that ingredient list, that means that the most abundant ingredient in that item is going to be salt. And we're not looking for that. That's not what we want. It's not healthy for us, and it's not good, and it means all our food is always going to be very salty. All right, so now I have a quart of milk here, and I use whole milk for this. That's very important, and I would say, because again, we talked about the reduction for price-wise, not using heavy cream, but we still want that richness. So we don't want to use a skim milk or 1% milk or anything like that. We want to use a whole milk. So now that I got a little bit of caramelization going, we got a little bit of flavor in there, I can already see it happening. I know you said, he crazy. He sees flavoring. Yes, I do. I see the flavor happening. I see it. I'm going to go ahead and add our milk. And you hear it talking again. And I'm going to whisk it, guys. Whisk as we add our liquid, which is milk in this particular instance. Now, one thing we could have done if we wanted this to be less rustic, we could add a little bit of white wine and then let that reduce down with the sanjay vegetables and the seasonings, and then add in heavy cream. Add our milk. I don't like that flavor profile, because I think it takes it from what this Cajun food is because it was food of the people, and it wasn't food of the aristocrats or the elites or the bourgeoisie, as they say. It was food of the people. And so I like to keep that integrity in this particular dish. All right. So we're adding quite a bit of milk to this one. Let it cook down, because we're actually going to put this over the pasta, over the spinach, and we got a couple people that can eat in here. We got some hungry folks here. If you're just doing this at home, you could probably get away with about maybe a quarter of a cup of the flour, a quarter cup to an eighth of a cup of your oil, and maybe about a pint or 16 ounces of the milk. Okay? Any questions? We're gonna let that come to a boil. We're gonna watch it, make sure it doesn't boil over, because what'll happen is, now, this is why you have to be careful when you're using a roux-based product, especially with any kind of milk or cream or anything, because it will boil over on you as the temperature rises, and as I'm coming back over to my cutting board to talk a little bit. As your temperature rises and your fats start to blend and cook in with the glutens, so the oil is stretching the glutens in the flour, you get expansion. And as that expands, you get rise in your pot. Now, the problem is, not only if that pot boils over, not only are you have a mess to clean up, but on top of that, you also end up losing a lot of your thickening agent in that pot. And then your sauce will never reach that nice flavor, thickening, coating that you're looking for. And you have to go back and try to do some adjustment to it to create the thickening that you're looking for. All right. So now I'm going to take the rest of these peppers that I have left on the board that are brunoise, and I'm going to go ahead and add those into the pot. So the original ones, we put them in, they get the sangé, they add to the flavor, and the oils came out of them, and now they're all in there and they're giving flavor. Now these ones that we're going to put in, they're just going to enhance the flavor a little bit more. And we're going to keep watching this. All right, I got my cameraman over here, Big Jacob, and we're going to he's going to watch this for me. He's going to say, Chef, it's getting high, just in case, because sometimes I'll forget, guys. But we're going to let that cook. All right. And we'll be tasting that in a little bit. So while that's going, the next thing that we're going to do is, after it gets to a certain point, we're going to get to certain thickness, we're going to add the shrimp. I don't add my shrimp in any dish in the beginning, guys. One thing that I hate, I hate to use the word hate. I don't like to use the word hate. But one thing that I do not like, and I'm going to say it again, that I hate, is to have a dish where you have your shrimp and it's put in so early in the dish that it loses its complexity and its strength in the dish. So I like to be able to taste my shrimp in a dish. I want to know that that shrimp is there. I want some of that shrimp texture. Shrimp does not take a long time to cook. I don't care what size it is. I don't care if you're using a U8 shrimp, and that means there's only 8 shrimp to the unit. It doesn't take a long time to cook. But I will tell you this, once you overcook shrimp, you lose so much of what you paid for. And what I mean by that, you lose so much of the flavor in what you paid for. Okay? So we're going to hold off on our shrimp for a little bit. That's going to come up to a boil. It's going to thicken up some. And once we add the shrimp, it's going to loosen up a little bit more, because there is going to be moisture that's going to come out of the shrimp into the dish. And also that moisture that's going to come out is going to actually enhance the flavor a little bit more also. All right. So now, with that being said, we're looking pretty good right now, guys. Any questions about anything?
No questions, Chef.
No questions. Okay. So we're going to go ahead now and we're going to clean our spinach. All right. You know, I love spinach. I love curly leaf spinach. For some reason, it's very hard to find right now. And normally what you're finding is flat broadleaf, which I have right here, which we're going to use, or you have baby spinach. Baby spinach is a great spinach for salad. Okay. It's a great spinach if you want to put on a sandwich. But for me, it's not a great spinach that I want to saute or cook it with. I love a full, mature head of spinach. All right. So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to get my colander over here. I'm going to bring it over to the board. and we're gonna take this broadleaf flat spinach, all right? And all we're gonna do is, because there is nutrients in every part of it, all right? It's not like doing a collard greens or a mustard or anything like that, even though it is a leafy green. What we're gonna do though, you don't have to take the stem all the way out, but you don't want a lot of stem in your spinach either. You want the leafy part of it. So this is the part that you want. This part here. Can we see that? We don't want a lot of this. And if you notice, and anybody's purchased produce over the years, if you notice, they sell it. They used to sell it by the bunch. Now they sell it by the pound a lot. And the reason being because this is all weight, and that adds to the price. All right. But a lot of times you can find it by the bunch, which is pretty good, and it's pretty expensive by the bunch, but it's well worth it. Okay. So I'm going to go back over to the stove real quick because I hear it. My pot is talking to me, and it's cooking, and it's thickening up really nice. And now I'm really going to lower this fire because we have achieved some thickness here. And we're going to make sure that we're stirring good on the bottom. We don't want burn on the bottom because it will burn on you and it'll get toasty, and we don't necessarily want that. So we want to just rub that bottom good before it gets to that point. Now we're going to just let it cook nice and slow. I don't know if you guys can see how thick it's getting already. All right, you see it's bubbling. When you see that happening, you know you're getting some body in there. And we're going to lower this down really, really, really low. Really, 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 really low. And what we're doing now is we are just cooking the stretching of the glutens. And as they stretch, we lose that floury, starchy flavor. And all the other flavors that are in there just start to incorporate. Okay, so that's what happens when you use a roux-based product. You're cooking the glutens, you're stretching the glutens, all right? And as those glutens stretch, they thicken your product. And as your product thickens, the flavors, the oils, the sugars of whatever item you're putting in there that's in there is starting to meld in and give good flavor, all right? Anybody have any questions? This morning, nice and low.
Question,
As
Chef.
low as it can go. Question.
If you have a stove where your eye doesn't get that low,
Okay.
can you move it to, is it okay to move it to another eye?
Yes, it is. I'll tell you something else that you can do, though. It's a great question. You can move it to another eye, but like I'm going to do right now, I'm going to slide it over to the back eye over here, where it can go for a nice, turn this one off, just so that you can see. And we're going to turn it nice and low, and we're going to just let that cook at a nice low temperature. And we're going to get that good flavor. I'm going to move this over so we don't have any mess. All right. Oh, yeah. Everything off the bottom. That's the important. All right, and we're just gonna let that cook down. That's gonna do pretty good right now. We're gonna pull our griddle up a little bit. We're gonna get on this soon. So holding heat. Back over to our spinach, guys. Back on the board. All right. How are we doing, guys? We doing okay? Everybody doing all right?
Yes, Chef.
All right. How is the product looking so far? Smelling good?
I see head nods.
All right. All right. So what I'm doing now, I just wanted to show you about the spinach. Just grab your spinach from the base of your stem here and your heads, the leaves here, and just tear them off. So all we're going to do, we're not going to chop this. We're not going to cut this. We are going to wilt this spinach up on the plate We're not going to overcook it. We're going to do what we call wilted spinach. And we're going to use a little bit of butter. You can do this with olive oil. You can do it with any kind of oil you like. Olive oil gives good flavor. I tend to like a little bit of butter. It may not be as healthy, but it has a lot of flavor. So this is one of those rich dishes that we're making today. And we will do those from time to time. And we will do some healthy dishes. We are going to talk in the future about how to substitute some products with plant-based items that we won't even know that they're plant-based and they taste really good. So we'll do that in the future. All right. Any questions so far? You notice I'm just tearing them off, the stems, and then in the garbage there. And you could use, if you have a garden or anything, you can actually use these stems as a good compost also. All right. So you can, ashes to ashes and dust to dust. We get it back into the garden and it will help grow products again. All right. So this is going. I'm going to go back over and check my sauce again because we definitely don't want it to get away, but it was really looking good. It's getting a little body to it. I'm going to taste it just to see where we are. Cook some more of that, get those gluten stretching. I know everybody's, we hear a lot about gluten-free and things like that. And I know that's a big thing right now. And there are other items that we can use for thickening agents and things like that. But we're doing the very classical Southern Cajun style cuisine. And that's what this is used for. And again, this cuisine was designed so that people could leave things cooking, come back after a long day of working in the field or trapping or whatever it may be, and have a good hearty meal that's going to sustain them. So there was a lot of movement, a lot of exercise going on. So they didn't have the issues that we have today with health, and everything that they ate was for nutrients.
Question, Chef.
Yes. Question?
How many people will that bunch of spinach feed once it's cooked down?
Great question. So, question is, how many people will this one bunch of spinach feed? So, as I walk over to the stove, I'm going to answer that question. Spinach reduces quite a bit when it's cooked properly, when it's cooking. All right, we're going to wilt this spinach down, and we'll probably be able to feed 2 to 3 people out of that amount of spinach, depending on how much you like spinach. So that has a lot to do with it too, because there will be a huge reduction because spinach naturally will reduce, and you'll see when we put it on the board. I'm coming back over here, and I'm just going to rinse that spinach now, just in the colander that we have it in. Gently moving it. I don't handle it too roughly. Just going to move it. I know you can't see it right now, but I'm just to let you know we don't want to beat it up. We don't want to bruise it. We want it to stay nice and beautiful. So we're going to let it drain. All right. All right, guys.
Question, Chef.
Yes.
Did you put the shrimp in yet?
Not yet. We haven't. Not yet. We're letting that cook down. We want to get those gluten stretched out all the way, and so that once we add that shrimp, it's going to loosen up some more, and we may not get much more. Thickening out of it. So we want to make sure we get it cooked out well. All right. I'm just going to taste it. We see the body on that? Can you see the body? So what I'm doing right now is, you see how it's pouring down and dripping? Can you see that? Let me turn this way for you, sir. And it's dripping. That's called nappe, or nap, N-A-P-E. And what that shows you, the viscosity of your sauce. You want to achieve nap. And what that means, and I've learned it from the French, so it's nappe. And what you want to do is you want to see that it will still pour off, but hold on to, back in the day, they said a wooden spoon, but now we use plastic, we use different things, but it just wants to hold. You see when it's holding like that, that means we're getting what they call a good nap to it. And that means when that lays over the on the fish, that it's just gonna lay there very nice. But now, key to it is we don't want it too thick. All right, we don't want it to lay there like glue. So. Oh yeah. It's getting there. That's cooking nice. We're going to add the shrimp in a couple minutes. That nap pays. Wow, that nap is very nice. Very, very nice. All right. Here we go. I'm gonna check my grill again. So we're gonna actually cook our spinach and our blackened swai on the same grill. All right. I'm gonna taste our pasta. Good flavor in there. Okay. Do we have any questions about anything so far? How are we doing? Everybody's caught up? Everybody's with us? While we're doing that, I'm gonna chop just a little more garlic so that we can make sure, because I like garlic flavor in my spinach, guys. And we're gonna have a little bit of beurre noisette, a little bit of brown butter. We're gonna add a little bit of cherry tomatoes right in there. We're gonna get those just charred, and they're gonna be tossed in with that spinach. And we're gonna have, it's gonna be very, I think it's gonna be really good. Nice accompaniment. How we doing, guys? Anybody cooking with me? Can I see what we're cooking? We're doing okay, guys?
We're doing good.
All right. So again, garlic, I love garlic. A lot of people love it. It's an antioxidant. It's healthy for you. It's good for heart health. It's good for blood. And it's found in just about every cuisine throughout the world. It's one of those items, there's ingredients that you find just about everywhere. And it has wonderful, wonderful health benefits and great flavor. All right. Okay, here we go, guys. We're going to go ahead and we're going to start to blacken our fish. So to blacken our fish, what we're going to do is we're going to take our blackened seasoning, right? It's all mixed in. We have everything in there. And we're going to sprinkle it down into our flat bowl. Now, one thing I did not put on the ingredient list, but I'm going to add a little bit of the canola oil right onto the seasoning. You'll see, just a tiny, just a drop of it. Just a drop of it. And what it's going to do, it's going to give a little moistening to it, just a tiny bit. We don't want an awful lot. And we're going to create a slight dredge. All right, so if you can see that, can we see that? Can anybody see that? I'm going to mix it around. Now, you notice I didn't put all of the blackened seasoning in here because I have a few pieces that we're going to cook, and we want to make sure that we have it distributed enough for the pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and take our swai. So here's our swai, okay? Can we see the swai, guys? I know it's very translucent, very light, but we have our skin side, which you can see has the little lines on it. And then we have our bone side. The bone side is where it's going to look more fleshier. And we're going to put our bone side down onto the seasoning. And we're going to press a little bit, okay? And we're only going to one side. We're only going to season the one side, okay? And that is the bone side. Or as we say in the business, we'll say our picture side. Okay, some people call it the money side. So whenever you're serving, you always serve your bone side up on fish because that's the side that looks good. All right, so trying to make sure I'm getting it all coated. Turn it over again. See that? See how that's coated? Okay.
Question, Chef.
Question?
So you only season one side of the fish?
Yes, on this one. Yes. And again, we're not seasoning to say season because we haven't put any seasoning on there. What we're doing is literally crusting it with the herbs, with the blackened seasoning. All right. So now we added a little bit of oil into this. So what that also does is it helps us so that we don't have to add so much oil onto our griddle so that we can get a good toast and not a sweat. That makes sense, guys?
Question, Chef. What's the difference between what is a sweat? What, clarify, please.
Okay, someone's asking me, what do I mean by the sweat and the toast? So sweat, if we think about it for a moment, sweat means that it's adding moisture. Toasting is dry. So if we put this on the griddle, when we put it on the griddle, if we have too much moisture on the griddle, even though oil, we put oil on there, oil is moisture in it. So if it has too much moisture, it's gonna retard the toasting of the herbs. Does that make sense? The herbs will still toast, but it's gonna actually slow it down, and it changes the flavor profile. It won't be as rich, the rich flavor that we're looking for. All right. Is that everybody got that again? Do I need to repeat that?
Thank you, Chef.
All right, here we go. So heading over here right now. So what I'm gonna do while I'm here, let's stir our sauce. We always stir in the sauce. Ooh, flavor's coming out. And those glutens are still stretching, but we want to get them all stretched out so we do not have that starchy, floury flavor. So I'm going to take a little bit of canola spray. Now, this is the key. A lot of people have to realize when they're using pan sprays and these different sprays, you're actually adding oil. You're adding fat to whatever product, whatever you're using it for. So it's not like you're adding a nondescript or some item that doesn't add anything to it. But it is, you're adding fat, okay? So to eliminate the amount of fat, that's why we add a little bit of oil in here, and I'm just gonna watch the coat that I put on this, all right? Let me see which side I wanna use. Nice enough, okay. So we're just gonna go, that's it, okay? So we saw that, right? That's it, guys. All right, so now we're gonna lay out. Can everybody hear that? That's what I'm talking about. That sounds about right. Doesn't sound like it's too fast, and it doesn't sound like it's not hot enough. That sounds about right for me. There we go. Those sound good. Now, if you guys, what I talked about earlier about the heat and the griddle and things like that, when I talked about if it's too cold, you won't hear that at all. And if it's too hot, that would be sounding, you would see things popping up off the grill right now. So right now we are toasting. I'm gonna make sure that the fish is not touching each other so they have enough space for the herbs to get toasted. Any questions on that? I'm going back over here. And I'm going to add a little more herbs in here, a little bit of the blackening, and just a drop more of oil. It's just like an eyedropper of oil. It's just enough just to get the herbs just a little bit together. So now I'm going to go ahead and press that down. And the idea is when you put your swai in, make sure you press it down. You want to get those herbs onto it. All right.
Question, Chef.
Yes, answer. Question.
Is blackened seasoning always the same ingredients?
It depends on who's making it. I mean, you can buy blackened seasoning on the market, and it'll be lined up in your supermarket. And if you read the ingredient base, it's going to probably, most of them are going to probably start with salt, which I don't like. And then they're going to have some generic spices that are the same. And then they'll say other spices. We don't know what those other spices are. But if you make it yourself, which is very simple, because you can make this blackened seasoning and you can store it. Put it in your container, put it in a bag, put it wherever you want. And you store it and use it whatever you want. This is great on fish. It's good on chicken. You can do it on vegetables, grilled blackened vegetables. You can do it on the pasta in just a cream sauce with a little blackening. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can do with it. You let your imagination run wild. So now what I'm going to do, well, this is going, see, we notice it's starting to curl up, which is good, which is actually a good sign, because so what they would do when they were out in the field, they would take something and they would press onto the fish, weight to hold it down. And we don't have one, but that's okay, because we're still going to achieve what we want. It's, oh man, if you can smell this, guys. Can you smell that over there? Can you smell what the chef is cooking?
Yes, chef.
Now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna add our shrimp, guys. Shrimp's going in. Shrimp is going in. And notice I poured the shrimp in. I didn't take it in and didn't put it in with my hand, guys. See, I didn't go like this and put it in. I poured it in. Why did I pour it in? Exactly. We wanted the liquid, that little bit of liquid that was in there is all flavor. So we want all that in the pot. All right. And that's going to town pretty good. And I told you guys, it doesn't take long to cook the shrimp, right? Stirring it up well. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. And I may loosen this up with a little bit of, I don't want to add any more base to it, because I could take a little bit of the shrimp base and add some water to it and loosen it up, but I may just add just a little bit of water to it. It's not going to affect the texture or the flavor, because we have so much flavor in there. And as we can see, and I showed you when we were doing the nap on it, you can see the how that sauce is holding. Look at that. It's not running off like water. You see, can you see that?
Yes, chef.
All right, so that's what you want. That means that's gonna hold on to the fish, it's gonna hold on to the pasta, and it's just gonna hold on to everything and taste absolutely wonderful. All right, here we go. So I'm gonna turn my swai in a second. Oh yeah. You hear it talking? So if we look at the swai, and you see it starting to sweat on top. You see that? That's the moisture that's pushing back into the swai. And that's a good sign, because what's happening is we don't see a lot of moisture around the sides of the fish. What we do see is some oil, all right, where we sprayed, and some oil is coming up, but we don't see moisture. That means the fish didn't sweat. We don't have moisture coming out of the fish onto the pan. All the flavor is being seared inside, toasted underneath those herbs back into the fish. And that's what we want to achieve. That's when we know we're cooking with fire, baby. All right, all right, all right. So I'm going to go ahead and add just a little bit of water to our sauce. And we're going to go ahead and
Question, chef,
answer.
why can't we add more milk?
We could add more milk, but what we're trying to achieve right now is we're trying to get the sauce just a little bit loose. So if we add more milk, it's actually because of the fat in the milk is going to actually go back into thickening mode. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yes,
chef.
chef.
All right, so here we go. All right. Now you see what happened? Can you guys see what's happening to the sauce here? And that may have been a tablespoon of water. Okay? You see? It's not runny. It still has a nap to it, and we still have flavor. Let's take a look at the shrimp. How long has that shrimp been in? If that long? 3 to 4
3-ish minutes.
Look at that shrimp. How do we know shrimp is ready? It's gonna swell up on the ends, and you can see along the vein line. That shrimp is just about done. Doesn't take long to cook shrimp, guys. If you want to, you'll taste the difference. You will really go, wow, I never knew shrimp tasted like that. So now while this is still going over here, we're gonna go ahead and get our spinach ready. And we're gonna get this on and popping right now. All right. We need this plate over here. I'm gonna take this and bring this over here so that we can, and I'm going to bring our spinach over, cleaned spinach. And it can be a little bit wet. All right. Okay. So we're going to use this corner here for our spinach. All right. So what we're going to do, we're going to add a little bit of butter right onto the griddle. Again, when we're doing these things, we don't need a lot of pots and pans, guys, to achieve what we want. All right. Get that butter going a little bit. All right. Now we're going to add a little bit of garlic. While that garlic's cooking, I am going to go ahead and turn our fish over. All right. Let's see what we got. Let's see what we got, guys. There we go. How's that look?
Blackened.
Nice. I like that. We got our spinach going. We're getting our garlic to get the little bit of get a little caramelization on our garlic, a little bit of noisette, a little brown on our butter. This is looking very good. All righty, I'm going to, we're going to add some pasta. We're going to turn the sauce up a little bit. As soon as we get this garlic off, we're going to turn the sauce up a little bit, and we're going to add pasta into it. And then we're going to take it. We want to just drape some of the pasta with some sauce. All right. In actuality, I'm going to show you something a little different that we can do, which will actually give a nice little contrast. We're going to take the pasta, because the pasta's already cooked. We cooked our pasta. We're going to toss it, sauce onto the pasta. Because we just want to get the pasta a little bit wet. Okay. All right, we're achieving caramelization on our garlic. Little toss of the pasta with the sauce. We're gonna set this to the side for a second. We're gonna move our garlic around. You see that beautiful noisette color being light brown. How's that look? Can you see that garlic there, guys?
Yes, chef.
All right, now, here's the key. We are going to go ahead and we're gonna drop this spinach right on top of the garlic. And as we drop this spinach on, we're gonna hear it talk to us again. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna wilt this garlic. We're not gonna cook it so far that it cooks up into nothing, but we wanna cook it so that we have a little bit of body to it. All right. So this is what we do. We move it. And we make sure that we're squeezing it as we pick it up, just so that we get the oils from the garlic into the spinach. Notice, guys, I haven't used any salt or pepper in these. The only thing I put salt and pepper in is on the fish. All right, now we're gonna take that spinach. That's it. We're not cooking the spinach any longer than that, okay? You see that? That's it. You see how much it reduces in volume? We're gonna spread it out onto the plate. All right. Next thing we're gonna do, we are going to, we're gonna add our pasta, some pasta to it. So this pasta is for our remote associate producer who wanted pasta or rice. So we made that for her. And our moderator here. And now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna take our blackened swai. We're gonna put it right over. I'm gonna put both of these on top of this one. Normally you could just be one piece. Oh yeah. If you guys could feel, when you feel yours, it should feel a little crusty. And that's nice. That means that those your herbs have toasted very nice. And you'll notice you'll know what I'm talking about when you pick it up, and when I say toasty and crusted, because you'll feel the difference in the texture of the fish. All right, so now, normally I would just plate one fish on here, but, so we're gonna take our shrimp, come down. Is it looking any good yet? No?
Yes, chef.
I don't know. A little extra sauce, just a little tiny bit onto the fish. And we're gonna put a little bit onto the plate. I don't know, does it look good? I don't know.
It looks delicious,
I'm
chef.
standing over here. I have no idea. You wanna see our shrimp? You wanna see our fish? Back over here. Like I said, normally it'd be one fillet, but this is a plate here for two. And oh, you know what we didn't do, guys? And we're gonna do it right now because our griddle's still on. We're gonna go ahead and our cherry tomatoes right onto the same space that the, just get a char on those. I was looking at the plates, I'm missing some red on there. And we're just gonna get a quick char on these. And they're gonna go on the plate and dress it up. Write the plate down. So far, how we looking, guys?
Looking good, Chef.
I wish I could. Any questions? How much time?
No question, Chef.
We just put a quick char onto your cherry tomatoes. And this is to add just another dimension to that plate. And this is a platter. Like I said, this can feed two people or three off of this plate. And normally I would just put one fish over the pasta, over the spinach and the pasta. But I didn't want the pasta to be so overpowering onto the plate. All right. So we put both the fish on, both fillets. And I hope that it's so. I'm going to go ahead and cook two more fillets on there. Two more that we have set up. And we'll go from there. Any questions? Anything? You guys are going to get ready for our next class, July 9th. So on this next plate, I'm going to go ahead and put one on so that we guys can take a look and see what it looks like as just an individual. We're going to let that toast up. And again, like I said, if you notice, this has minimal seasoning on anything other than the fish, right? And that being because the blackening is intensified with the toasting of the herbs. The swai has a nice mild sweet flavor. The spinach has a natural flavor, especially once we caramelize it with the garlic. And the tomatoes are going to add another dimension to that. So we don't need a lot of salt or other spices on there. All right. We're still looking good. Awesome. All right. Guys can hear that. Can we hear it cooking? So when we do our chilling and grilling in July, guys, the 9th, I want you guys to come aboard and get ready to taste some really good. We're going to do some skewers, some chicken and some shrimp skewers. We're going to do a couple different burgers. We're going to do a couple different salads to go along with it. We're going to do a wonderful cucumber and tomato with a balsamic honey black pepper dressing that we'll make. We're going to actually have some fresh fruit and everything to go along with cooling us off in the grilling and the chilling. And it's going to be an outdoorsy event as long as weather permitting. And we're also going to do, as we're doing it, we're going to talk to you about how to do this inside on a George Foreman grill. Oh, There we go. George Foreman grill or an indoor grill pan. All right. Any questions about anything?
We have a guest showing her plate.
Oh,
chef.
let's see it. Let's see the plate. Oh, look at that. That looks amazing. Wow, thank you so much. That looks so amazing. Definitely. That looks great. All right. Anybody else showing the plate? That looks awesome. That's what I'm talking about. Now, yes. Elevation. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull these tomatoes. We're gonna add them to our platter that's there. And I'm gonna sit that platter over there for my my wonderful staff. And they can jump into it while I finish up our show plate. I bet you guys didn't know that you could just saute a little bit of tomatoes and then just get a nice little texture to them, little flavor profile. And I'm gonna go ahead, this will be for you guys to go ahead and start. And I'm gonna finish this up over here and we'll be going. There we go. I'm gonna make one more singular. Thank you. Press. So now our griddle is really nice and hot. That's a great thing right now. It's been heating up for a while. We already cooked some on there, so we got some flavor working. Now it's really getting there. All right. So we're gonna do the same process here. I left a little cherry tomatoes on there. Mm-hmm. So, as we continue to move on, guys, just continue looking for going on to our webpage, our YouTube channel. YouTube is Cooking with Carrington. Our webpage is cookingwithcarrington.com. You guys can continue to look for those and see what we have out there in our blogs and everything else. All right. I'm gonna walk back over here. So make sure to join us at our next Cooking with Carrington episode, Chilling and Grilling on July 9th. I think you'll be totally amazed and amazed by the flavors that you're gonna see. If anybody has any questions, let's go ahead and stick around because we're gonna have a Q&A session that will not be recorded. So we'd love to have you ask us anything that you want to know. Not only that, well, I'm going to add another thing, guys. If there's anything that you want to see or anything that you've thought about that maybe I would love to try, I don't know how to do it. Maybe that send us some information. We'd love to try to see what we can do to help you guys achieve your dreams and your culinary aspirations. But as always, thank you for being with Cooking with Carrington, where there's always a party in your mouth, where we aim to elevate and educate. And we hope that you had a great time on today. Thank you.